All right, welcome back to the Jiu Jitsu Mindset. My name is Pete Deely. We sadly do not have Professor Lucas with us. He's out there doing good work in the world. But he texted me earlier and told me he got his submission coffee to start today. So if you're looking for your submission coffee, it's thejujitsumindset.com. We'd love to send you out some whole beans. It's still not classified as a performance enhancing drug, so you're safe to drink as much submission coffee as you want. We have had extraordinary, good fortune on this podcast to week after week talk to amazing people, and our good fortune streak continues. So today I have Professor Scott Brengel with me. Thank you, Professor Scott. I'm so glad you came.
Thanks for having me.
And you are a Renaissance man. I was going to say a Renaissance man of athletics, but since I got a chance to talk to you a little bit beforehand, I mean, your skills and talents cover a very wide set of things that don't always live in the same person. So I'm very excited to talk to you today. And I know we only got about an hour, but I got about 12 hours worth of questions. So I'm going to try to restrain myself. But maybe we could do this. Maybe we could start with, could you locate jujitsu as a discipline, as an art, within the context of all the other physical disciplines that you have had in your life? Because you've had success in a lot of different areas, and you've been disciplined in a lot of different ways as an athlete and a physical person. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about how jiu-jitsu is either the same or how it's different from these other things you've done.
Well, I think discipline and consistency. This is something that I try to preach to my athletes. If you take three things and put them together, you can accomplish anything. And that is discipline, consistency, and hard work. And that's how I've been, basically accomplishing anything in my life since I was a young kid.
Right.
And, if you don't have that combination, of traits, jiu-jitsu is not gonna, proliferate in your life. And so,
For sure.
you have to get up in the morning, no matter how you feel. You have to, have that discipline and that mindset that says, it doesn't matter. I have to go. And you have to do that consistently over and over and over again and stay on your schedule. And then the best you can do when you get there is just bust your butt with whatever whatever energy levels you have that day, or whatever, kind of health your body is in at that day, then you just have to kind of channel all that, and, one day you might wake up and be a brown belt or a purple belt or, whatever. Some people, the journey takes a little bit longer because, they have a lot of life,
Sure.
things and hurdles. I mean, I don't have a shortage of responsibilities in my life. I have two kids. I run a business, I run the corporate wellness program. So I'm always busy doing things. But when I retired from my day job, as an analyst of experience, like we talked about before, I retired that Friday. And then Monday I was at Art of Jiu Jitsu, starting my journey in a gi,
How great.
yeah. So it's like, when I was, I don't know, like 5 years ago. And, I had experience already in MMA from training alongside of my MMA fighters that I coach in strength. And so, I had a strange kind of like skill set that didn't really apply as much as I would have hoped it to in a gi,
Right.
because MMA grappling is like completely different than anything you're going to experience in a gi. And so, but I knew a bunch of submissions. And you learn things like knee cut and turtle, like those are like two things you learn in MMA. But when you go to Art of Jiu Jitsu, it's like, Della what? Like it's or what, and all of these, knee cut, Toriando pass, you learn their sequences and stuff. And it's just like, all right, this is a whole different thing. This isn't, exactly what I would hoped, but I love to learn new things, and, skills are just like, I think are the most valuable and the most rewarding things that, you can do with your time as a human being.
Yeah.
And so for me, like jujitsu is just like always something that fascinated me because since the early UFC days, I mean, I'm sure you watched as
Sure.
well. watched the Gracies going and just, take on these big opponents that just looked like there's no way in hell that you could ever dominate a person that looked like that. But then,
Right.
their wiry bodies just their frames were doing things that you wouldn't expect. And so, like, always fascinated me. I always loved the thought of MMA. I
Right.
started with a very strange mix, a martial arts background. I wanted to do martial arts since I was a little kid.
Okay.
Moved out of California, and I was like, was just looking around for any kind of martial art to do.
Right.
Before the Gracies really pulled their stuff over to the United States. So I ended up doing like Aikido and Kempo.
Sure.
I even got as far as my brown belt. That's my discipline. Just I get through things fast. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I was always very athletic, and I'm very strong. Especially for my size. And so, end up getting like a third degree brown belt in those disciplines. But it wasn't like, no, it just didn't like seem as applicable or as like true to life as like MMA was in the jujitsu. So I stopped doing that, and I started focusing more on my strongman stuff that I was doing. So I was competing as a pro in strongman.
Right.
And, when you're doing a sport like strongman, you have to like really focus all in. You know what I mean? It's just like jujitsu. If you want to compete at the highest level, you can't play tennis or
Right.
play anything else. You have to be studying all the time. You have to be training. If you're not doing that, you're in the gym trying to get stronger, which is, kind of, the best way for them to kind of like do things outside of the academy, but then yet still, it translates directly into their, all the rest of their training.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
let's talk a little bit about some of these couple of different parts because they're interesting. And I appreciate like you beginning with, listen, you got to be consistent. You have to have hard work. These are the building blocks of any successful thing. Um, as you early in your athletic life, I mean, football seems to be the organizing principle of like what you're trying to accomplish. And I think, as you, you thought, well, maybe the NFL was for you, right? And maybe you could talk a little bit about how you dedicated yourself to that road. And then the transition into strongman would be an interesting thing to hear about. And then how jujitsu sort of enters your life. Cause it sounds like, there's a little bit of a sequence here and then jujitsu shows up kind of at maybe not entirely expected. Like maybe you were watching UFC, but I don't know if it was clear. I know as someone of my age, Kempo, Aikido, those are things that I studied in little bits and pieces along the way
Yeah.
because the business models of those um, people teaching that were established where I lived. You could go and find a Kempo teacher, an Aikido teacher. When I was a teenager, I'm not quite sure when I could have found even a jujitsu teacher in terms of like my lifestyle. I came to it when I was 50.
Yeah.
But if I was in my 20s, I don't recall seeing schools. So anyway, what I'm curious about your story a little bit is, maybe you talk a little bit about your dedication to football, maybe if you translated that to strongman and then how jujitsu came into the picture.
Sure. So, um, like anything else, when I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it no matter what. You know what I mean? I'm going to give everything I have until the very end, until it's like not a possibility anymore. So for football, like I, I went and studied with all the strength coaches that I possibly could that were like, reputable. I read all their books before like things were available on the internet, before YouTube, before Instagram, before you could just go on your phone and just scroll through things to find information and take pieces of it whenever you want.
Right.
I had to learn like the base, the framework of how to be a great strength coach, how to make, how to periodize uh, for a long period of time. If the athlete has a season that's like, once a year or seasonally like football, you have to learn how to like, condition, develop speed, and then how to transition the maximal strength into speed and explosive power, agility. There's just so many facets of being a strength coach. And so it fascinated me. So, through, I graduated college, and, I played football in college, but, I wasn't done. I wanted to see how far I could take it because I love football. I still love football,
Yeah.
and so Well, to me, I try to be as analytical and as, intellectual as I possibly can be, whatever I was given,
Hmm.
through genetics, but, not the smartest person, but, I try to use as much of my brain as I possibly can creatively and, analytically.
Right.
So
And you had a degree effectively, like, I mean, finance and economics, if I recall. I mean, you're a mind for numbers and analytics, and then
good.
you took that sort of, raw power, and then kind of seems to have applied it to how to develop your body in a particular way too.
And I don't think that those like that quality is very strong in most strength coaches. They don't have math isn't something that they're really gravitated towards because
Right. Yeah.
I didn't either really. I just did it because I knew I could find a job anywhere. I'm good enough, strong enough in math that I could get a degree in it, and then move around the country like I was intending to, and then find a job, and so, I used that to kind of to kind of work with and read all the books. It's not just how to do a squat, or it's not that being a strength coach involves a lot of math. So you're working with like strength scientists. They're constantly measuring and evaluating, how athletes perform, in a very compartmentalized way, based on what their sport is, how the joint angles in their training are going to affect their power output at the angles they're using
Sure.
in competitions or whatever sport they're playing. So, and then also there's that whole Olympic lifting facet, which a lot of the strength scientists are very much, heavily geared towards because it's the Olympics. And that's the most complicated thing you're ever going to see in the gym is like learning how to snatch and learning how to do it.
Yes,
You know what I mean? And
I
so,
do.
and like there was a lot of like information out there about, power and how to develop power, which is force over time. And, is Olympic lifting a good way to do that? Is it not a good way to do that? There's kind of like mixed opinion, like whether it's worth, investing your time in. So like I just like try to learn as much as I could. Like Charlie Francis is Ben Johnson's coach from Canada when he broke that 10-second barrier. We worked with him, worked with Charles Poliquin, worked with Mel Siff. Charles Poliquin's very famous in Canada.
Yes.
He's not, he passed away, but
Yes.
he's the one that kind of like introduced like strength training to like the general community through, it was a Muscle Media 2000 magazine back in the 90s.
Right.
Like he's the one that was like, hey, these are the greatest strength scientists. These are the greatest coaches. These are the best books. And the way I am, I'm just like, okay, I just found something out. I found out I've decoded the secret and now I'm just going to get as much information as I can. I'm going to read it. And then, I found Charlie Francis and then, he was putting out books and information. And so I'm like, all right, I have some answers here. So I started reading and started like experimenting. And I think like that's the big part of it is like being able to experiment on yourself, seeing what really works because drugs are a factor too.
Yep.
Like when you're talking about volume, like PEDs, a lot of these athletes are on a ton of PEDs,
Yeah.
they're using their seasons and stuff to kind of like not test positive for it, but a lot of them are using it, and so is that workout, is that type of training right for someone who is, a lifetime natural? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to kind of like constantly play around with those things because some of the data is not accurate for like people like me. I'm a lifetime natural. So I was very much against PEDs when I was in my 20s, but I didn't care. I figured I can, through hard work and my discipline and my brain, I could overcome, whatever deficit I was having for, guys that might be using. And so like, I use that, to kind of like to get my 40-yard dash time down. I use that to get my shuttle, my agility better. My bench press was off the charts. I was doing like 225 for like 30 reps.
Wow.
And I was only like 205 pounds. So I played wide receiver in college. And, after that, I was pretty fast, but, I used all of that, discipline to kind of like figure out what was going on, put myself in the brains of these other people, and then take that information and then come back and kind of work it in my lab and then figure out what really works for me and what works for, different athletes, whether you're performance enhanced or you're not performance enhanced.
Yes, you have this long relationship with football, and you're dialing things in, getting more and more precise as you're sort of seeking the NFL as the end game, and then as you transition from that to a professional strongman,
Mhm.
um, like what was the attraction to being a strongman versus using those skills in a different athletic capacity? Like,
Yeah.
what flipped you into the strongman world?
Well, the bad thing about being a football player, especially in any team sport, is that your role on making a team or
Right.
in your role on the team is dictated by someone else's opinion of you.
Right. Right.
Well, is this the best guy for the job? They don't care if you're hardworking. They just care whatever their perception is of who the best guy is. There could be like 12 guys, and 10 of the guys, all have similar, times and they're same speed. This guy might run, better, short routes. This guy might be a better burner. This guy might be a better blocker, might be better running over the middle. It doesn't matter, you know what I mean? No matter how hard you work in the gym, it's not gonna change anyone's mind about how you fit on their team.
Right.
So, he's 27 years old, and, at that point, you're like, "Am I?" I mean, this is, I'm getting a little bit older now. Are they gonna consider me? No, they're not. So, like, after time, and then, I was introduced to strongman competitions by my business partner, Cameron Gardner, and he was like, "Scott, you would absolutely love, this because it's just like, you're literally testing every facet of strength you could possibly imagine. And, it's a puzzle.
Right.
And this is where more of my success really came in is, like, I started researching, okay, who around my area has, strongman equipment and whatever. So I found this group called the Freak Factory. It's in LA,
Right.
and, it's all like guys that are like 300 pounds, just humongous. And I was like 200, 205,
Right.
but I wanted to try it, you know what I
Sure.
mean? Because, I'm in the gym all the time anyway. And I had good base strength. I had good movement. I knew Olympic lifting,
Mhm.
so like I went and found them, and then I signed up for like a pro-am in strongman. It's the highest level show you can go.
Okay.
No, with thinking I was gonna win the whole show no matter what happened because I was gonna outwork everybody and figure it all out.
Right.
Go there on day one, and it's just like these big guys, Kevin Kinsey, Charlie Captor was like 6'8", 320 pounds. Punch Bryant is like a powerlifting world champion. He's well known too on the social media and,
Okay.
and YouTube. Just a hulking guy,
Right.
300 pounds, just like he can like squat like 800 plus pounds, and I'm like 200 something, like low 200s, have their max strength. So they can literally just pick stuff up and go. And I'm just like trying to like figure it out, I'm not trying to kill myself.
Sure.
Yeah. After the first day, I was like, I'm laying on the couch afterward, just like my whole body was just like, oh my God, because you're picking up all these odd objects and it's like very just taxing on your nervous system and on your body.
Yeah.
Every,
Without a doubt.
yeah. So it was just like, all right, I think I found a new puzzle to solve here. It just fascinated me because it's not like powerlifting where you have squat, bench, deadlift.
Right.
It could be anything. You show up to a contest, you'd be, pulling a truck, you'd be picking up a giant stone. You could be carrying giant oxygen tanks like farmer handles. You
Right.
could be, so many things,
Yeah, this is like a real world application of strength that exists differently, than other strength dependent sports, right? I mean, even powerlifting, even Olympic lifting, where there's a very specific domain in which you need to operate within. Where strongman seems to put you in the world and just in the world. Well, we're going to have you throw this over your head, over this bar, and so on and so forth, as if it's a video game of sorts. We don't know where,
Yeah.
right? And I think in some ways, like jujitsu is a similar corollary in that,
Yes.
in boxing, okay, we're going to stand up with these gloves and these are the rules and it's a specific domain. Whereas jujitsu to me feels more like what we were just talking about with the strongman. Now, next to, these giants, you
Yeah.
may not look like the biggest guy, but next to the rest of us, you're an awfully big man. And,
Yeah.
for those of you not seeing the video, like very imposing in your physique. So
Yeah.
when you are used to these very explosive, strength dependent activities, and then jujitsu comes into your life, what's that like? Because there must have been a very difficult like gear to find that didn't have you just switching into using all of the strength that had been developed in these other areas to in jiu-jitsu? Because otherwise it probably was hard to find people that were of similar size
Yep.
that would, counterbalance just your non-jiu-jitsu skills because you're strong. So
Yeah.
did that frustrate you? Were you even aware of it? Or was there experts that came in and showed that, okay, no matter how strong you are, like how did the beginning of this go?
So, like I said before, I had like an MMA background, like
Yeah,
the fighters that I trained. So, but that's different, it's like very scrappy, very brutal. It's not like this very composed, calculated type of, movement there's just so much more strategy. I believe in jujitsu because of the different positions that you get into and there's no striking.
right.
So punch someone in the face, you know what I mean? Everything goes out the window.
Yeah, yeah,
That
it's
would happen
famously
in the
said,
real
right?
in you
Yeah,
my passion said, In MMA, it's like, if you're getting punched, you're not gonna pull X guard on somebody or single X or anything like that. You're gonna get punched in the face.
right, right,
Also, jujitsu within the skill set, and the rules of jujitsu, there's so many different positions that you can get into, and there's so many problems that you have to solve. Like if you're if you're gonna be competing against the guy that's like a foot locker or, someone that likes, if you're going no gi, you're getting heel hooks left and right out of any position, you have to change the way that you approach, your match
right,
and the way you approach, your strategy in general. You have to, hide your legs, and you have to like learn how to attack and then you're exposing your head. And so then it's just like, so for me starting in jujitsu, like I had the fighters, that I was training with and, they were there and I trained them in my gym. And so they knew the kind of person that I was. They knew how strong I was, but they say that I was their strength training for their MMA and their jujitsu, so like if they could do things on me, they could do it on anybody.
okay,
Well, that was them. And then I go over to Art of Jiu-Jitsu and, you have to start off with the basics class there, unless you're, a blue belt, you know,
right,
and, so you go to the basics class. So until you get your first stripe, you can't go on the mat with gi and, the competitors and stuff. So, I had, I don't know, like 3 or 4 guys that were kinda a little bit more like, a little more tough, a little more athletic, and they were just they weren't like, super, frail or like afraid to get hurt, They were more like, the kinda guy that I would train in my gym. They're definitely more gritty. And, so we kinda linked up, you know what I mean? Like you find the people that kind of like your
right.
little group that you will drill with.
Yeah,
And then, so you drill with them, they don't mind a little bit of pain, they don't and neither did I. 'Cause in the beginning, when you're a white belt, you're like for some people, and I'm sure you experience this too, like, especially the younger athletic guys, they're probably some people call them spazzy or they're just,
sure.
they just
Yeah,
don't have your best interests in mind, they might hurt you, like, that really wasn't a concern for me, because I'm very durable, like, joints are super thick, like, my tendons are super thick, and so I can impose a lot of force on people. So for me, I mean, the hardest thing was going against the wrestlers, the guys that were the blue belts and stuff and the
yeah,
basics that were like came in from collegiate and high school wrestling. And, I didn't really have much of a wrestling background. Those were the hardest ones for me. But, I never turned down a role. You know what I mean? I'll just say, hey, sure. You know what I mean? And whatever happens, happens. And I try to protect myself if I know the person's better than me. You know what I mean?
right.
So I have kids and I have to run my business and stuff too. So I do think like a 50-year-old too. It's just like, um, I don't mind pain as much though, because strongman, you literally have to carry like something, Conan's wheel in your arms and you're picking up stones, you're ripping the flesh off your skin. It's just like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
pain on the shoulder is literally off the charts. So I don't even mind getting choked that much, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're clearly like you're as you say durable. You're kind of built for you're not just durable psychologically. You're built differently than you could have someone that might look like you and you would be less durable because I mean your tendons are developed in a particular way, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a combination of things that you know the divine gave you, you came into the world with, and that you developed over time. And I think also the methodicalness that you've developed your strength over time probably contributed to like all of that thickness and those places that keep you from getting hurt, as opposed to just, this didn't happen overnight. You've built this durable
Well,
body
and that's the
over
thing
over
about
over
strength
decades.
training is that when you give ligaments a chance to develop and you're not like just rushing into the sport, just pumping yourself with, just
Sure.
steroids, and you give your tendons and your ligaments a chance to like develop, that sticks with you for the rest of your
For
life.
your whole life, right? It's yeah, I mean, strength, I'm a huge proponent of what you're saying, and I think it's sadly overlooked by too many folks in terms of what to general physical preparedness for the average person, with an emphasis to strength is a way to have longevity. But what about the other side of the equation? Like, did you, we speak a lot about the humility that's required to get good at jujitsu. And because you were so physically powerful, are you somebody that experienced what the rest of us mortals experience? And then maybe you
Yeah.
could tell a story about that. Cause
We can continue with me getting my first stripes on my white belt. So I think probably took about like a 2 months or 3 months to get my first stripe because they're feeling you out. But I did well against the basics guys. Like no one could submit me.
right,
And I was submitting people all the time because I knew a bunch of submissions already from MMA.
sure,
They're gross, but I know how to choke people, like people wanted to ask, like the guys that ended up coming over to my gym, they were like, holy crap, this guy is so strong. Like, what do you do? So the guy that I was like mostly like drilling
right.
with, he was at my gym within like a week or two. Like,
And
I
what
just
is,
wanna be
we'll do
like,
what this guy does.
yeah, I want to do whatever you do. And then one as like to roll with him a lot, they were similar, like they were back and forth. He started like destroying the other guy. So then he was like, what the hell's going on? Damn, gym. And then like 4 other guys came right after that. So then I had like almost the entire basics class at my gym. They were just like, I'm not letting this guy get an advantage. But you know what I mean? That's just how you think in jujitsu.
Sure. Yeah.
Like I'm getting better in technique than this person. I know it, but why am I still losing? And it's just
Right.
because strength is a huge, like, just a huge advantage in jujitsu because moves that will work on everybody else. Like, and I hear this all the time. Wow, that works on everybody else. Why isn't this working on you? I hear it all the time.
Sure.
And I take it for granted because, even though you're putting all the work on your technique in jujitsu, I'm in the gym busting my ass, carrying friggin' yokes on my back and carrying, doing farmer's walks and stones. And, it's like, it puts you into a certain category where, like you said, there's a lot of room for error, like I don't have to choke you perfectly to get you to tap. I don't, you have, even if you try to choke me perfectly, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to choke me or armbar me because I have the strength. My arm is stronger than both of your legs. You
Right.
know what I mean? And that happens a lot, but then, I get done with the basics class and I get my stripe and I'm like, I'm on the other mat, like instantly. And a lot of guys that
Yeah.
did have their stripe, they were more reluctant to go over there. But
Sure.
once I went over there, because I don't care, I'm
Right.
just like,
Right.
throw me into the fire because this is just how that's how I've always been. My
Right.
old brothers kicked the shit out of me. So, like, and I had a lot of bullies growing up in New Jersey.
Okay.
But I was like, yeah, I don't mind, getting roughed up. So I go over there and 6 months goes by, 6 or 9 months, I don't remember what it was. And I still had never been tapped, there.
Okay.
And I'm fighting. I'm like, even if I'm like in a horrible position, I'm not choking, I'm not tapping, nothing. I'm just fighting people off, trying to frame and, try to create space.
Sure.
And then this guy, black belt, he starts coming over to all the blue belts and starts picking them off. So he comes up to me and he's like, hey. And I was like, oh, cool. Black belt wants to roll with me. He's 6'3", 6'4", and he's got long legs and he goes to the gym. He just calls me over and I start rolling with him. And, he pulls guard. Most people, they don't want to pull guard on me because, they don't want to be on the bottom. But the guys that are good at attacking legs or are good at close guard, so he pulls guard on me, climbs up my back, breaks my posture, and I could good morning like 350 pounds. Like but this guy, he's high level AOJ guy, Zach Balaban.
Okay.
Yeah. He has my neck friggin' bent all the way down and he puts me in a triangle. And I was like, holy shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
all right, like, if you have the right leverages, and he's big, he's like 200 and something, he's as
Yeah,
big
yeah.
as, if not like taller and weighs more. Right. He was able to break my posture and he's able to choke me. I was like, damn, dude, you're the first person to choke me out. And AOJ goes, what? And he goes over and gets his other black belt and then they're like, oh, so then now they're trying to like, make a game out of me.
Yeah, right, right.
What attacked me except for him. But, like that dimension for me, like those tall guys with long legs, if they're strong,
Yeah,
really struggle against them. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, uh, it's interesting. I mean, for those people unfamiliar with what a good morning is, 350 pounds is a freak of nature level of strength in terms of, go look on YouTube what that means to, and such a functional
yeah,
like movement. If you can do that, there's a lot of things in the world you won't get hurt doing because your
yeah.
back's going to be like a piece of
Steel
iron.
girder, like a steel girder. Yeah.
Steel girder, right? Well, I mean, as you've coached and been a part of these things, I mean, one of the things we like to ask is sort of how you've observed, jujitsu affecting people around you. And maybe you could talk about maybe some of your students or whatnot and tell a story along those lines. Cause it sounds to me like this was a hand in glove fit for you. You were ready to come in, you'd had a little bit of experience in
Yeah.
grappling, which, you know, you always know a wrestler. If someone comes in as a white belt and they're in their 50s and they haven't done any
Yeah.
grappling or whatnot, and I know they wrestled in high school. They always move different. There's just something about wrestlers that are just super tough, understand, from a proprioception perspective, they just seem to know what to do with their bodies, um,
Yeah.
in that kind of amazing way. But I'm curious, just with your students and the people around you, if you have any of those stories about how it impacted, how jujitsu impacted someone that was around you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how many dozens of students from AOJ, before I even started training AOJ, the competitors actually were already training here, which is kind of why I kind of was like looking for a place. Maybe it was a little bit less, um, little man oriented, like,
Yeah,
the Berimbolo, De La Hiva
right.
game, guard pulling, because I didn't, see myself like doing that style. Anyway, the timing at AOJ worked out really well for my schedule, so I started training there. And, I already had a lot of competitors, training at my gym because uh, one of the kids that I trained from another academy ended up going to AOJ,
Right.
and so, I was training him already, and so he brought some of the big competitors, like big names, from AOJ here. And the problem, is that their skills are amazing because they've been doing it since they were little kids.
Sure.
But there was always that thing, that they come in and they're like, I just need to get stronger. I feel like, when I'm in competition, I'm just not the strongest person in my bracket, and they know when they're getting like, out muscled, or positions are getting forced on them, or they're not winning the scrambles. And so, they come and train with me, especially if they come for like a year or two, they will see a huge difference in like just their ability to dominate their bracket. So, I've had like, MMA fighters that made it to the UFC, you
Wow.
know, I have, jujitsu champions, glory champions, people that, have actually gotten stronger. Like, um, two of my favorite, probably the better AOJ well-known people are Jessa Khan, who just actually married Zach Kina. They've been coming to my gym. I have pictures of them. And they're just, well, teenagers and stuff.
Yeah. How fun.
Over time, like Zach's probably the most disciplined person out of all the jiu-jitsu fighters that I train, and he's
Okay.
one of the highest level. He's just a phenom, and people love to watch him. And he's on all the big fight cards and stuff when they want something entertaining. And he has no problem fighting even up or two, a bracket or two, like no count. He can handle, you know, anything that comes at him. And then, he's won, no gi worlds, and, he's won, what else did he win? He won, American Nationals. He won Jiu-Jitsu Con.
Wow.
He's IBJJF super fight champion. And, he's going to be doing that, AJP, Grand Slam this weekend in Dallas. And then his new wife, Jessica Khan, is very famous. Um, she won worlds in 2023, and she's also no-gi world champion, Pan Am champion, Asian champion,
Wow.
IBJJF super champion. So, and then, I train the Mano brothers, Dominic Mano, who's like, he has every single title from his first, he's like the first ever student at AOJ. That's still, and he's only a purple belt now. And he's training there since he was like 5 or 6 years old. I think he's 18 now.
Oh my goodness.
He's
Yeah.
like a black belt wearing a purple belt is
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Right.
lying in the gym. And so I was training him and his brother. His brother switched over to wrestling now. So I trained his brother's entire wrestling team. He wrestles for Newport Harbor it's in Newport Beach, California. So since I had both the twins, Dominic's still going in jiu-jitsu strong. And then Anthony, he's the captain and now senior in high school. And he's like probably going to win states this year.
Wow.
Like having these athletes in here and then taking them and then giving them the strength that they need to dominate in whatever they're doing, whether it's wrestling or jiu-jitsu, and knowing that that's not a factor anymore. So when Zach comes in and he wins, and he's dominated somebody, it's like, it's just such a great, feeling, not just for him, but for me that I helped
Oh
him do.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, when he loses, he never comes in and says to me, I felt like that guy was stronger and more physically dominant than me. He just made it, that he usually loses if he loses, it's by ref's decision or one advantage.
Right. Right.
I don't ever see him lose like something catastrophic. It just doesn't happen because, he has the skill and the strength to to stop, any kind of attack. So
Yeah.
honestly, like that's what it is. And then watching like a guy like Giga Chikadze get into the UFC and compete at a very high level and, he's like top 5 in his weight class. And then, long ago I had, all the Bellator fighters, I had all these Russians, Alexander Shlemenko, he won the Bellator title and he retained it 3 times, and, he was training with me at the time. And so were his underlings like Andrei Koreshkov and Tiger Sarnovsky. Like you watch these people, get stronger and then you see them in the cage and they're just like physically,
Yeah.
you know, dominating people. It's just like, it's a nice feeling, to know that, you have this and the knowledge and the power to kind of like take someone's dreams and then make it come true, and I think that a lot of people don't really believe in themselves and they don't have the confidence in themselves as much as they should. And I think that's another part of what I do too, is like, I was just a skinny little kid from New Jersey that used to get picked on and beat up, all the time, and I just started going, I watched, television, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, they were just like jacked out of their minds, the Ultimate Warrior, tell me that, like, I was like, if I look like that, I guarantee you that no one will put this to me. But then I just started lifting weights, and that was kind of like, for me, it was like the start of it was just like, you know, if I could like just be strong and I could just be fast and athletic, I know that I could, you know, defend myself or hit a home run or score a touchdown football or hit somebody hard or not feel like I'm getting dominated. And so like my mentality in the gym, especially, is to take their confidence and just through the roof. No one is training the way you're training. I mean, I say that all the time. No one is training the way that you're training. You are outworking everybody. I promise you, no one is doing what you're doing in here because I combine everything I've ever learned for football, track and field, Olympic lifting, strongman, all into like one comprehensive like athletic program that suits the biomechanics and the needs of their sport. And on top of that, what I always say to them is I'm going to make you so durable that you're going to be able to train nonstop, because I feel like more than strength, durability is the most important facet of strength training, especially for jiu-jitsu, football players, rugby, any of those dominant, MMA. If you're not durable, it doesn't matter because you're not going to be able to train and you're not going to be able to, go to your academy and learn new techniques and drill new techniques. You're not going to be able to come in the gym and like do what you need to do to get stronger. So the most important part is that I make your joints so durable and so thick over time that it just reduces the amount of risk for injury. Like it's such a great percentage.
Yeah. And well, I mean, and that's what you want to do in between now and death, right? It's like you want to have as few parts of where you can't move the way you want to move.
Yeah.
And a way that you do that is to protect yourself in exactly the manner you're describing. And as you're talking, I think for all the time in jiu-jitsu that I spend, we say, well, it's it's not about the strength and in terms of like techniques and rolling and although that's true, sometimes I think meaning that like when you're practicing your techniques, but strength is always valuable. Like there's never a moment in which strength isn't valuable. And the more strength you can draw on, it has to always be considered an asset. So yes, I mean, as developing your techniques as a jujitsu athlete, you need
Mhm.
to work on the techniques. But the more you bring to that party to, as you say, if somebody wants to submit you and they're looking for an arm bar, it better be an awfully well positioned armbar because like
Yes.
anything, any cracks in the armor there are gonna, be overcome by the fact that like, well, you don't have exactly the right leverage here, and my strength is gonna overcome your body
Yep.
weight even because I'm used to good morning, 350 pounds. God only knows what you can do with your
Mhm.
arm. Well, my guess is that as people are listening, s- somebody out there may want to find you. So how do they like what's the right way to go sort of either follow you on social media or
Yeah.
maybe come down or what's the right way to do that?
You can contact me on Instagram. I'm at East West Strength, and then it's eastweststrength.com is my website.
Okay.
Well, I'm not hard to find. If you just type in Strongman, I run California's Strongest Man every year. It's my show.
Okay.
So, like, if you were just to type in California Strongman, like for instance, the World's Strongest Man from 2023 was just at my gym this week.
Oh
He
my
was
gosh.
doing some like guest appearance for this Wadapalooza in Huntington Beach.
Oh, okay.
His assistant like Googled me, and if you type in Huntington Beach Strongman, I'm gonna be the first thing you pop up because California's Strongest Man is ran in Huntington Beach, and so he came in. He didn't realize the accomplishments of the gym, and then like a day later, he's like, I talked to another world's strongest man that I used to train, Martins, and then he's like, okay, I guess I could pick your brain. You're not just some old guy, to him, I'm tiny, he's like 350, 400 pounds. Like 205, 210 now, and I'm just some old gray guy, so great. Sure.
That's okay.
I've
Nothing
learned a
wrong.
thing or two, so
That's
that's
right.
it. Yeah, so but he wasn't, he's one of those people that wants to take information in no matter who it's from, as long as he knows it's credible, but,
Sure.
you know
All right. Well, listen, thanks for sharing everything that you shared with us. I hope that everyone listen, go at a minimum, go follow, uh, Scott on Instagram and sure there's a lot of things that they might learn, but also be probably impressive to see. So, I hope
Yeah,
everybody does that.
thank you.
And maybe you'll come back again, talk to us in the future. We'd love to
Anytime,
continue the conversation.
anytime. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Be good.